A mystery has traveled through the centuries, whispered across mountains, carved into stones, and carried quietly in the blood of millions. It is the question that has fascinated historians, puzzled scientists, and ignited countless debates. Who exactly are the Bulgarian people? Not the simplified textbook version, not the political story taught in schools, but the deeper truth, the truth written in DNA, untouched by myth, unchanged by time, and impossible to distort. For generations, people argued over this riddle. Some claimed Bulgarians were simply Slavs who moved south. Others insisted they were the descendants of the ancient Thracians, a people older than Rome, older than Greece, older than nearly every civilization on the continent. Still others pointed to mysterious nomadic horsemen who appeared on the horizon 13 centuries ago and carved a state into the Balkans. But now, after decades of questions, science has finally turned on the light. And what emerges from the genetic evidence isn't a single answer. It's a story unlike anything anyone expected. A story that reshapes everything we thought we knew about Bulgaria. Stay with this until the end, because the real revelation doesn't appear in the beginning. It arrives in the last chapter, when all the pieces finally lock together. The story doesn't begin with Slavs. It doesn't even begin with Bulgars. It begins thousands of years before that, when the first farmers and tribes of the Balkans built their lives on this land. Their identities were never written in textbooks, but their DNA endured in silence. These early people, Neolithic settlers and ancient Thracian tribes, laid the foundation that still forms the largest part of Bulgarian ancestry today. Archaeologists found their traces in the earth: gold artifacts, burial mounds, fortresses, pottery, and symbols no one fully understands. But genetics found something even more important, a continuity so deep that it stretches unbroken across millennia. While migration waves reshaped most of Europe, the Balkan core survived here better than almost anywhere else. This is the first surprising truth. Modern Bulgarians carry one of the strongest continuities of ancient Balkan DNA in all of Europe. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. Rome marched across the land. Byzantium built its icons. Yet through all this, the genetic core of the region endured. Then came the next chapter, one that reshaped the cultural identity of the land, even though it didn't erase their old bloodlines. Around the 6th and 7th centuries, Slavic tribes pushed southward from the forests of Eastern Europe. They brought new languages, new traditions, and a new way of life. But they did not come as conquerors who wiped out the existing population. They came as settlers, spreading slowly, village by village, river by river, interweaving their communities with the people already living there. For a long time, the belief was simple: Bulgarians are Slavs. But the DNA tells a very different and more complex story. Genetics shows a strong Slavic component, noticeable, measurable, important, but not dominant. Instead of replacing the local population, the Slavs mixed into it, adding a new layer to an already ancient foundation. This blending created a population genetically distinct from northern Slavs in places like Poland or Ukraine. The Balkans shaped the Slavic blood into something new. It wasn't just a migration, it was a fusion, a cultural and genetic partnership that formed a people who were neither entirely Slavic nor purely Balkan, but something in between. Then, from the vast grasslands beyond the Black Sea, another element entered the story, one that would eventually give Bulgaria its name. Nomadic groups from the Steppe, part of the same broad family as Sarmatians, Alans, and other Eurasian tribes, began moving west. They were horsemen, strategists, rulers of open landscapes. Among them were the early Bulgars, a Turkic-speaking group whose origins are still debated. Some trace them to the Volga region, others to the Caucasus or Central Asia. For centuries, people assumed that modern Bulgarians were mostly descended from these warrior tribes. After all, they founded the first Bulgarian Empire. They established the early political structure. They gave the land its name. But once again, DNA uncovers a quieter truth. The genetic contribution of the early Bulgars is real, but small, far smaller than once believed. Scientists found only a faint signal of Central Asian or steppe ancestry in modern Bulgarians, often around a few percent. Their influence shaped culture, politics, and identity far more than it shaped genetics. This is another surprising truth. The people who named Bulgaria left only a modest genetic footprint, but an enormous cultural legacy. And yet, their presence mattered, because they brought something unique, something already blended by the time they arrived. Genetic studies of ancient Bulgar remains reveal a mixture of Caucasian, Iranian, and steppe ancestries, proof that the Bulgars themselves were not a pure group, but the product of earlier cultural exchanges. This layered complexity is part of what makes the Bulgarian genetic story so extraordinary. Few regions in Europe absorbed so many ancient influences without losing their original core. As the centuries unfolded, Bulgaria became a crossroads between worlds. Empires collided here. Byzantine armies, Ottoman sultans, crusaders, nomads, traders, refugees. Yet the DNA of the population remained remarkably stable. This stability becomes even more impressive during the Ottoman period. Millions of people were displaced across the Balkans. Villages were abandoned, rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt again. People fled to mountains, valleys, islands. Cultures overlapped. New languages arrived. New religions spread. And still, the Bulgarian genetic identity endured. When scientists took nationwide samples, they found that people from different regions of Bulgaria share a surprisingly unified genetic profile. It means that despite 500 years of upheaval, the population did not fracture into isolated, unrelated groups. The core remained intact. This is extremely rare in Europe, and it leads to a remarkable conclusion. Bulgarians today are one of the few European populations whose DNA preserves layers from ancient Balkan tribes, early Slavs, steppe nomads, and medieval Bulgars without losing the deep ancestral roots that existed thousands of years earlier. It's not a simple story. It's not a story of one origin. It's a story of survival, blending, endurance, and identity. The DNA reveals truths that history alone could never capture. It shows the Thracian roots still present in modern Bulgarians, not as a myth, but as a measurable reality. It shows the Slavic layers that reshaped language and culture, but didn't erase the people who came before. It shows the Bulgar traces, faint yet historically powerful. It shows steppe ancestry, small yet meaningful, a reminder of ancient mobility across continents. It shows Balkan continuity stronger than almost anywhere in Europe. It shows that identity is not a single line, but a tapestry woven across thousands of years. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all, the genetic story of Bulgaria is not about replacement. It's about preservation. Where other populations were wiped out by massive migrations, The Balkan core survived. It adapted. It merged. It evolved. But it did not disappear. Every percentage in the Bulgarian genome is a chapter in a long and extraordinary human story. A story written in the blood of farmers, warriors, nomads, settlers, kings, shepherds, merchants, and families who lived, died, loved, fought, and built their lives on this land long before the word Bulgaria ever existed. If this journey opened a new perspective for you, share your thoughts. Maybe your family carries traditions passed down for generations. Maybe you have roots in the Balkans. Maybe this story made you wonder where your own past begins. Leave your experiences below. Every story adds another thread to the tapestry. Thank you for watching. And until the next deep dive into ancient history and modern science, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and keep exploring the world's hidden past.